Buongiorno e benvenuti alla seconda parte della giornata Think Mobile. Questo pomeriggio sarà dedicato ai sviluppatori. Cominceremo con una prima sessione su Android Market che sarà presentato da un mio collega di Londra, Richard. Subito dopo ci sarà una breve pausa in cui ci sarà spazio per fare domande e incoraggio il pubblico a farne di tante. Subito dopo continueremo con una sessione su Android User Experience con il nostro specialista sempre dall'ufficio di Londra, Nick, per poi concludere con la terza sessione in cui facciamo una revisione delle applicazioni inviate dal pubblico dal vivo con consigli e suggerimenti su come migliorarle. Approfitto dell'occasione per segnalare che ci sono i vari colleghi ingegneri dell'ufficio di Milano qui presenti, Egil, Lorenzo e Jacopo. Se volete fare delle domande in italiano sono qui apposta. Poi verso le 5 tornerà il nostro country manager Stefano per dare un ultimo saluto e poi faremo un aperitivo fuori con chi vuole può fare una visita al museo del design qui alla Triennale. Non vi faccio aspettare oltre e passo la parola subito a Richard che presenterà Android Market.
Thank you very much. Can we get the slides up, please, at the back? Thank you. I'm not quite sure what was just said there. I don't speak any Italian at all, and I'm sorry for that. I hope that you understand my accent today. Welcome to an afternoon of Android awesomeness. As we just heard, we're going to hear about the Android market to start with, Android market for developers. And then we're going to run into maybe a live coding session of a view pager, have a little break, have another talk, and then some live app reviews. So hopefully the people who submitted their applications for review will be here today, and they can come up on stage and we can review their applications. Hey, magic. So Android market for developers. So who here has got an app live in the Android market? Come on, don't be shy. There's plenty. There's like 15%, 20% of people. There's a lot of them over there. Let's see if I can get this back to the second row. Who were the people over there who had an app in the Android market? There was like 20 of you all together. Someone's got it. Okay. First thing given out. So Android market for developers. We're going to start right at the beginning, where it all began with the T-Mobile G1. Where Android... Who had a T-Mobile G1 or a G1 of any sort? There's a few of them out there. Yeah, me too. I loved it, and I still have my G1. The keyboard was the best keyboard I ever had on a mobile device. So we went from the G1, and Android started growing. And it grew. And it grew. Maybe some of you have seen this before. Okay, so that was in May at Google I/O. We first showed that video. Who knows how many Android devices have been activated since that video, or in total now? So in May we had 100 million devices. How many activated Android devices do we have now? There's a mini collectible for the right answer. Anyone? Anyone want to guess at the number of Android devices activated now? That's cheap. Yeah? Guy at the front here said 150 million. He's right. I wasn't sure if he'd seen the slides earlier. Sorry if someone at the back shouted out. We'll try and get a microphone out to the back later on when I'm asking questions. You want to take that? Cheers. So yeah, stats for Android right now. 150 million device activations, 410 unique device types around the world. 550,000 activations a day, 6 billion app installs off the Android market, 250,000 applications in the Android market, and 39 OEMs, 131 countries. There's 10 countries missing. And if you look at the growth, if you look at those figures for the device activations and you look how it's been climbing, you can see that that last chunk jumped from 400,000 to 550,000 activations every single day in the last few months. So not only do we have that 150 million users for you when you use the Android market, it's increasing by another 500,000 plus users every day. So your applications can get some real exposure. But you may ask yourself, and we asked you to ask questions when you were registering for the event. You may ask yourself, how can I possibly write an application that runs on 410 different devices in 130 countries? How can I solve the problems of the different screen sizes, the different capabilities, phones with GPS or cameras? Maybe some of you know the answer, maybe some of you don't. What makes a compatible Android device? Well, it's the compatibility test suite. We have a set of tests, and they're developed in the open at source.android.com/compatibility. You can see all the tests that every single phone has to pass if it's going to become a with Google or Google Experience device. Not only that, if you're coding and you find a device that's not compatible with something that you're building in Android, you can submit more tests. And right now, the set of tests is at over 13,000 tests that have to be run against every single device before it can have the Android market and before it can receive your applications. And you can go and see those 13,000 tests that need to be run. It's quite a long list. So for the rest of this talk, we're just going to run through an introduction to the Android market. We're going to look at multiple APK listings. It's a new feature in Android where you can have more APKs listed under one item. We're going to look at market licensing, the LVL, License Verification Library, and then in-app billing, one of the strongest ways for you to monetize your application on Android. So as you clearly know, Android market is open for business. You can publish your applications whenever you want, and they're usually live within 5 or 10 minutes. You can do updates as often as you want. For that one $25 or maybe €25 registration fee, you can just continually update your applications. You can launch them early. You can look at user feedback. You can update your applications, and they're just instantly pushed out onto the Android market. You can change the pricing. As long as you don't go free to paid, you can change the pricing. So the standard flow for publishing to the Android market, you develop, you register, and you publish. To make your application, it's free. The Android SDK is totally free. You don't need to pay for registration. You can download the Android SDK at developer.android.com. It's the place where we put all of our Android resources. We have all our tutorials or our samples. Everything is at developer.android.com. And it's the place that every Android developer starts out. Then you register for the Android market. You can set up a Google Checkout account if you want to sell your applications as well. And then just publish straight in there. As long as you obey the content policy, which is pretty much no gambling apps and no adult applications, you can publish your app straight into the Android market. Don't infringe on people's copyrights, and it will just remain there. No one can take it down. So maybe you've seen the screen. You create a new listing in the Android market. You choose your assets. You upload them into the Android market. You choose the APK. You write the descriptions. It's very important that you're writing the descriptions in all relevant languages, because people are going to be searching for your application, and they'll search for it in their native language. So even if you're an Italian publishing an application in English, you may consider translating it into French, German, Spanish, just so that you have full market reach. Sorry?
Is that a keyword-based search? Like they will, there's a thing that people type in?
There isn't a keyword-based search. You can't tag your application as such, but the title and then the body description text can be translated into multiple languages, and it'll be based on the exact matching of the title. There's an algorithm which works, like Google search, on the content and the title. But if you haven't translated it, then that's not going to work when people in other countries search for your application in their native language. So the publishing options, you'll still be given an option to copy protect your application. And unfortunately, a lot of people choose it, and we shouldn't be using it anymore. It was an option that was in the original version of Android to forward lock an application, to try and stop piracy. It was one not particularly strong method of stopping piracy on Android. People could still take your application, and they could just re-sign it with their own key, and then put it up into the market. So instead of forward locking, we definitely recommend you say no at this point, turn copy protection off, because it actually means that your application won't be available on some devices. Instead, we're going to talk a little bit later about the license verification library, which is a much stronger method of protecting your application. And then you can specify which countries you want your application to be live in. You can just say all, which is an easy option for free applications, or you can be very, very specific down to each individual country that you want to go live in. So there's other ways for users to discover your application on the Android market. They can look straight in the application. They've got the widget. You can deep link. The Android market application on the phones recognizes market:// links, and will come to the foreground. And we've also integrated application search into Google search. So if you're on an Android device and you search for, say, Angry Birds, in the search listings, a market link will appear so you can click through and download it from the market. That market link will also appear for your applications as well. So if you've got a brand or a company and people are searching for it using mobile search, and you've also got a listing in the Android market, both your website and your Android market listing will appear in the mobile search. It just makes discovery that much easier if you've got one set of users on mobile already. Other places, people are finding finding applications. I don't like reading bullet points. I'll let you just have a look at it. We're going to talk a little bit more later about the top developer list, the editor's choice, the staff picks, all these new lists that are rolling out right now across the Android market. Some of you may have them already. They're rolling out across Europe and Africa as we speak. You'll get a new market client on your phone. It looks very different to the old one, and it's got pages you can swipe through of top applications, top new applications, top free applications, trending applications. Have you got it yet? It's on your phone. No? It's not what, sorry? It's not connected. But people have this new application on their phone already, right? That's good news. We're never quite sure around rollout times, who's received it and who hasn't. But you see them on the website as well, so you can always see all the new features and trending lists on the Android market website. And the trending list specifically is my favorite place to look for new applications. I always go in every single day now. I'm checking the trending list either on the website or on my phone, find the new applications, tweet about them, promote them the best that I can, maybe nominate them for featuring. The other place you can find statistics about your application, you can check in the Android market for statistics, but if you want to be far more specific, you can use Google Analytics. And you can run Google Analytics inside each of your applications. We have a library for it. There's an Android Google Analytics library. And it's very simple to implement. You can just do, once you've imported the library, you get a tracker class. And you can do things like track a start, track a click of a button, track a page view, track an exception, track anything inside your application. And once it's tracked, you'll get a report. If you've used Google Analytics for your website, you'll know what it looks like. You'll get a report that looks like this. And you can just see for every single activity in your application, for everything you're tracking, you get very detailed, specific readout of how users are flowing through your application, which screens are the most important, which ones you should focus on improving, where the exit points of your application are. It's all very useful for optimizing, getting that user information that the users don't want to actually tell you. And you can use that to feed back. As you improve your app, the ranking of your application will improve in the Android market. We can't talk about the way Android market ranks applications mainly because it changes very, very often, but there's clearly some secrets in there as well. But it's based on many, many signals which we believe the users will think that the applications we're promoting are the ones that they'll want. So are users interested, number of installs, number of uninstalls, how long people are installing your application for. and a bunch of other factors as well. So one of the most frequent questions we get, how do we improve our application? How do we improve our rankings? You get, clearly, build a great application. Build the best application you can. Work with a UI designer. Get something that smashes users. They open it up and it goes, and they just need to use your application. This is the best way. If you're not working with a UI designer, work with one. Nick's going to talk a little bit more about that later on. You can target. Do tablets. I know many of you might not think that tablets are, the next big form factor, but they are. People sit at home on their laps with their tablets, using them all the time, and we see that people who have tablets are installing many more applications than people who have phones. So there's a multiplication factor in there as well. And then, of course, you've got to decide whether you want free applications or paid applications or freemium. And right now, my personal recommendation is to go for the in-app billing model. Put a free application out there. Free applications have far less piracy issues. We'll cover that later as well. But put a free application out there and then hook the user into your application. Make them want to use your application. Let them have some free time in your application. Get them addicted to it. Let them see how good it is. And then upsell them. Sell them more levels. Sell them other features. Even put payment in there to remove the adverts from your application if you like. But in-app billing is massively growing as a way of monetizing on Android. So much so that if you go back to the market website and you look at those lists, you'll see the top grossing list. And 7 out of 10 of the applications in the top grossing list are free. And they're free because they have in-app billing in them, and they're making a lot more money than the paid applications. Just a little comment on featuring and promotion inside the Android market. When you upload your application, you're asked to upload a great big banner, the one that's shown at the top here. It's like 1,000 pixels by 500 pixels. And you may think that it's only shown on the Android market, but it's also shown in this new Android market client as well. And it's scaled right down for that. So try and avoid small text, because it just won't be readable when it's scaled down. But thinking again about the big one, can you see the first thing that you look at when you go to the Android market is that great big graphic? It's not the Android market logo. It's nothing to do with us. It's nothing to do with the Android market. It's you, and it's your brand. So if you get up there, it's you who's welcoming new users into the Android market. So you need to just perfect that great big graphic. And having amazing graphics up there is one of the things that helps you get featured in Android, because it makes our market look better on the phone and on the web. So talking of things we look for when we're featuring an application, one is clearly some nice banner art at the top, something that users will be attracted to. Other things, again, a list. Don't read lists. But if it's relevant to seasons, if it's a Christmas application and it's coming up to Christmas, it's got a higher chance of getting featured. Same thing goes throughout the year. If it works on phones and tablets, it's got a higher chance of getting featured. These things. And things that we don't look for, things that will never ever get featured, are applications that have come straight from other platforms onto Android and completely discounted all of the Android best practices, all of the Android look and feel, things that come along with maybe back buttons in the top left corner. So the things that you can do to help your application, help promote your application, help your application grow. There's a set of things that are algorithmic, they're going to work on your behalf, and then there's just a set of things editorial, chosen. So we can run through the just-in list, followed by more from the developer. So if you've got multiple apps, we'll automatically promote them in your market slot for you. Trending applications. It's at the front. I believe it is the most important. If you get your application, if you get your launch strategy right, and your application comes into the market and makes it into the trending list, that's the place you want to be. You become trending because you don't need very many installs to get trending. You just need growth. Whereas the top free and top paid application lists, you need pretty good amounts of ratings and installs. Trending applications, you just need to show growth over a short period of time. So get some marketing in place for your application in the first 30 days. Then from trending, you can get into the top new free or top new paid applications, again, over a 30-day period, followed by top free and top paid, which are, again, harder to get into because they're over a long period of time. Top free and top paid applications are there for brand new Android users to just go into the market and see what the best ever Android applications are there for. The top new ones are for constant users. They go back to the market frequently and they want to see what's new in the market. So we've added the new lists in to make your apps discoverable as well as the apps that users must have on their phones. Then on the bottom line, the things that aren't algorithmic featuring. The users also viewed and users also installed. They appear in your market listing as well. So generally relevant to your application, but it also means your application will appear in other listings that are relevant to your application. Personal recommendations. Top grossing apps. Again, I mentioned this earlier. It's the one place where it's almost free applications, all using in-app billing. And then finally, we've got the new badges. The new badges are rolling out across this new market client as well. We've got the editor's choice, top developer, and then you have a successful application. So moving on from the Android market specifics, how to promote your app, how the Android market works. We go on to one of the new features of the Android market. It's a feature that I hope, strangely enough, that most of you don't need to use. But it's a feature to help combat any fragmentation worries that you may have. What it allows is for one market listing to have multiple application files listed underneath it. So, for example, if you wanted to have one market listing with one set of reviews and one set of feedback, but one application for phones and one application for tablets, you could do that here. You can specify based on screen size which APK goes where. And even if it's the same application, sometimes it's better to do that just to keep the higher resolution resources, the really high resolution resources, out of the phone ones, just to keep the file sizes down. But as I say, I hope you don't use it. We'd much rather you make one application file which runs across all devices from tiny phones to big TVs. But this is just one way that you can get through it without having to have multiple market listings. Have an application, then the same application for tablets and the same application for TVs, and then hope somebody discovers the right one. Another real big benefit of this is the Android Market Restore function. So if someone has a phone and then they buy a tablet and they've installed your application on the phone, when they log into the tablet, it's going to start installing their applications based on that account in the Android market. And if previously you had one application called Gonzo and one Gonzo for tablets, the tablet would install the first one that was on the phone. Whereas now you have multiple APK, they both sit in the same place, the phone version goes onto the phone, the tablet version goes onto the tablet, and the application restores. The user has a great experience. They're like, wow, I've got the tablet version of this. It's a nice solution. As I say, these are the things that you can filter your multiple APKs on. So screen size being one of them. Compression format is for 3D textures. There's two major 3D texture formats supported in Android, and instead of including entire sets of textures under both, in one application, you can make the two applications half the file sizes and have the textures in there. Display density and platform version. Platform version clearly being very important when you're making you've got an application that works on older phones and you want to upgrade it for a new feature like multi-touch, but you don't want to have to use reflection or anything to keep it working on the older phones. You can just put the new version of the APK with the new functionality in as well. I've done that for some of my apps where I wanted to maintain Android 1.5 support, so I left the old APK there, but then I blitzed through and made a much better version of it, which didn't support Android 1.5, and listed that in the multiple APK in the market as well. Hopefully you don't have reason to use it, but if you do, it's there. Developers did ask for it, especially games developers. So if you want to do it, you create multiple binaries. You sign the binaries with the same signature, and you use features which are exclusive from each other. So you say, I support these screen sizes, or I support this SDK, but you make sure that the APKs you're listing in the market have exclusive, mutually exclusive sets of features. So the market's not confused by which one to distribute to which devices, It will warn you if they're not exclusive features. When you upload a new APK file, it'll say that's got the same uses features as the previous version. I wouldn't know what to do with that. Same with support screens. So for example, here we've got one application which supports large screens, and that would go out to large and above. And then one application that supports the small screen devices, and that would go out to everything else. Okay, so multiple APK was the first kind of new feature in the Android market that's been released recently. And the next one is the licensing service. Is anybody already using the Android market licensing service? The LVL? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Great. Well, this isn't that useful for you, but we do have a licensing service. It's replacing copy protection in the Android market. It's only for paid applications. Free applications don't really see piracy. But for paid applications, we can verify to you that the user has bought your application, or the user logged in with that Gmail account has bought your application. So your application can query the license verification service and say, is this user licensed to use my application? Did they pay for it, or did they pirate it? That's just how it works. With license verification, you have a couple of choices how you implement it, based on what kind of application you have. If you have a game that people are playing through, if you have a game that people are playing through, and you want to convert them, you don't put this up. You don't just say, you haven't bought my application, I'm going to kick you out right now. Because that's going to, A, be slightly annoying, and these potentially are customers who want to use your application. They want to use it enough that they pirated it, but they want to use your application, so they've gone to these lengths. So what you really want to do is say something else. Say, you've been using my application, that's fine. Do you not think maybe you should just pay for it? These people, maybe they will. You can just say, play on, you can send them straight to the Android market listing, and then they can just buy your application. We have reports from some of our games developers that they actually get more discovery through pirated apps being upsold through this method than they do through the Android market natively. So, license verification library, LVL. It's available in your AVD and SDK manager in Android, either through Eclipse or just through .android. You can download it, import it into your project. Runs on all devices 1.5 upwards. And you get this. Your application says to the Android market client, which is where the licensing service is hosted. It is related to whether they've paid for the application through the Android market, so it makes sense. It says to the Android market, has this person paid for my application? The Android market then goes back with a very secure connection, Android market to our server, says, has the user paid for it? The server comes back again, says yes or no. It's all signed, and then you get the response. And you're actually getting the signed response back from the server. And we provide you with a public key in your Android market account, so you can go in, you can get your public key, and then you can just check that that message that's come back from the server, our Android market servers, is the original message that we sent you. And you should be the only person who can read that. This is something, especially if your application is worth quite a lot, people may go to some extra lengths to pirate it. And one thing that they can do is take your APK file, disassemble it, change the license verification messages so it always returns true, pack it back together again, re-sign it, and then distribute it. It's an unfortunate attack, but there are ways of going against it. First of all, you can obfuscate your code, clearly obfuscate your code. Secondly, don't just use the LVL library example code, because that's kind of easy to search for once it's been decompiled, or know that's where the LVL is and they'll know how to fix it. Whereas if you change that code around, then all the automated attacks will find it much, much harder to change your application. And then you're moving into the space of really dedicated pirates, people who are going to disassemble your obfuscated app, look through it line by line, try and figure out that one bit of code which they can change. It becomes much trickier, and you can help fix that as well. This is mainly going to apply if you're checking the security from the server on the application itself. If your application gets so big that pirates are going to these lengths to break it, you can ping your messages back to your server where the pirates can't get to and do the validation up there. Other things are reflection. Make sure your application's not debuggable. All these things make it very, very hard to pirate. We never, except in this one case, advocate using reflection inside Android applications because it's quite expensive, quite slow. But here you can put a little bit of reflection in, or load a class from your server, something like that, just to make sure that it's your application. Just really make sure that only the really dedicated pirates are going to get near it. Obfuscation. Hopefully we know what obfuscation is. There's ProGuard tools built into the Android SDK, so you just have to turn them on. It will obfuscate your files for you. Once it's decompiled, it just makes it much harder to understand the code. Turns all class names into A's, B's, C's, 1s, 2s, 3s, things like that. Okay, so that's, what was the first one before LVL? Multi-APK and license verification library. So the third one is in-app billing, which, as I say, is the best way right now to make money on the Android market. Maybe there's some of the Google advertising guys in the room who wouldn't agree. Actually, they're in the next room. I can get away with this. In-app billing is the best way to make money on the Android market right now. So I'm going to run through quickly a use case of in-app billing. Is anybody using in-app billing in their application in the Android market already? No? Okay, right, in-app billing then. So we've got two types of in-app billing in Android. First of all, managed items. Secondly, unmanaged items. Two very distinct things. Managed items actually works a lot like LVL, but we'll run through that now. And unmanaged items, different. So managed items, you set up in the Android market user interface. For your application, you can say, list my products here. And you go and you list items that you want to sell to the user, whether it's magic spells or fuel or level upgrades. You can list these things, or removing ads. I think I'm going to get told off for this. Managed items are maintained on our server. The users can only download each managed item once. So if they reinstall your game and they try and buy it again, the market server will return saying it's already purchased. And one of the nice things is you can actually ask the market server whether or not they've already purchased that item as well. And in that way, it works a little bit like the license verification for paid applications. So free applications don't need really piracy protection because they're free. Paid applications have LVL, and in-app billing has managed items. You can't fake a managed item. Once you've purchased it, the Android market remembers that you've purchased it. Then you can even replay managed item purchases. So once an application is downloaded for the first time on a new device, you can just ask the Android market what that user has purchased in your application and restore the state. Unmanaged items, you can buy as many times as you want. You can keep buying them. You can do credits for making whatever IP phone calls maybe. You just want to keep purchasing them, and the Android market won't tell you it's already been purchased. The Android market won't even keep track that it's been purchased. So with unmanaged items, if you want to know how many times it's been purchased, you have to keep track yourself, either inside the application or on the server. Fuels and spells, credits, things like that. So just managed items and unmanaged items. The flow for in-app billing looks a little like that. It's really just 4 steps though. Set up, make requests, listen for response, and check the security. So setting it up, you need to check that the right version of Android market's on the device and that in-app billing supported. It does all that for you. I'm going to run through the flow first. So your application says to the Android market client again, just like it did with LVL, I want to make a billing request. That goes off to the market server. The market server, again, a secure server with a secure connection to the Android market, comes back down and tells your application, if you press the right button, there we go. The signed response comes back in, and then your application can release the digital assets, whatever they've just bought to the user. So the setup, if you go again into your Android AVD and SDK manager, you can get the in-app billing library and import it into your project. And you do that by grabbing this AIDL, Android Interface Definition Language file. You drop that into your project, and a new stub will be created under the gen directory for connecting to the Android market billing service. So then you implement a service connection because you want to connect to this service that's provided by the Android market. It's a service running on all of your devices right now, if you've got Android phones. And you just implement on service connected and on service disconnected, and then you can run the code at the bottom and say, I want to bind myself to the Android market billing service. And then you have a connection with the Android market billing service that you can start sending requests to and from. And then the first thing that you do once you've connected is you ask the Android market billing service whether or not billing is supported. At this point, it's going to do some checks for you. First of all, it will check if you've got internet connectivity, so you don't need to worry about that. It will make sure that the right version of the Android client is there, as I say, and as it should be, because we rolled it out along with the last market update. So as long as you've got the green version of the market on your phone, you'll have in-app billing supported, and it rolled out across all devices from 1.6 upwards. And then you send the next message. So first of all, you check if billing is supported, and then you just send a request purchase message. And the request purchase message comes back, assuming you put the right order, stock unit number in it for the managed item that you're purchasing. It comes back and says, here's an intent. And it gives you an intent which fires the Android market billing screen up. So you don't need to worry about the billing screen at all. All you do is say request purchase, it returns you an intent, and then you can just call start activity on that intent, and the Android market billing screen comes up, and it's the right billing screen depending on which version of the Android market they've currently got installed. And that's it. You get a response back through the broadcast receiver that you implement. It's up there. So you just have to do an on receive, and then you fire the intent, the market screen appears, the user presses buy, and once the transaction's complete, it calls back to your application. A broadcast is sent to your application through the broadcast receiver that you state in the Android manifest. This is all on developer.android.com. And you just get the on-receive message back. And there's some sample code for how to process that message as well on developer.android.com. So secure in-app billing. You can find out whether the user's purchased it before. You can make money. You can upgrade. You can list your application for free. I love it. And then these are the messages that come back during that broadcast. The purchase state changed. And actually, the last thing is quite important, the confirm notifications. Because a user may have multiple Android devices, and the market doesn't necessarily know which device they purchased the item through, we're going to broadcast out to the devices saying this thing has been purchased. And we'll continue to broadcast out until your application says confirm that purchase. So you then send the confirm notification back to the Android market just to finish off the flow. That's fair enough. Again, as I mentioned with LVL, you can make it more secure by putting the verification code on your own server. So the messages are going from our server through the client, still signed all the way through, and then up to your server, still signed. And then at that point, on your server, you can release digital assets of any sort for the device. But it just makes it tamper-proof because it's server-to-server communications, which are fully signed. Just makes it a lot more secure, especially if you're releasing some high-value items from your server to let the client download. And finally, some permissions. If you don't put the Android vending billing permission in the application, it's just not going to work. You'll get some error message about billing failed, and it's usually, first time around, it's going to be because of this. Secondly is we have some test units. If whilst you're developing, you put this as your stock unit, whatever you call it, code, android.test.purchase, then you can just keep doing it. I didn't know about this to start with, and I was testing my first application, and I kept having to go back to Google Checkout and cancelling the purchase, so I didn't just keep spending £1 every time whilst I was developing. But instead of having to go through to Google Checkout, see it, cancel it, you can just use android.test.purchase, and android.test.cancelled will be it's a good test for the failure case as well. And the bottom one is the same. If you've ever listed a paid application in the Android market, you may notice that you can't purchase it yourself from your own Gmail account logged into your phone. That's just a Google Checkout thing. You can't buy things from yourself in Google Checkout. It applies to the Android market as well, but it also applies to in-app billing because clearance is done through Google Checkout. So you're going to get your second or third failure will be you're trying to do the in-app billing on your own account, and you'll find that it fails. If you don't have a second Gmail account, get a friend to test it. But it's easy enough just to set up a second Gmail account and run through. The Managing Products screen, as I say, next to every single line item in your Android market, there's an in-app products button, just a little blue link, and you press that, and that's where you get your list of managed items for the Android market. So, next one, cloud services on Android. We're providing, again, some nice new features. Maybe some of you don't know about this one, the application data backup feature. We have some helper classes. One's called the Shared Preferences Backup Helper, I think. And given the descriptive nature of the class name, what it does is help you back up your shared preferences. And it backs them up to our market servers. And at any time, your application can say, I want to back up my preferences now. And the preferences get backed up to the market. And then if the user installs your application, those shared preferences come back down with it again. And as I was mentioning before about the user buying a tablet or user buying another phone use case, this makes for a really interesting flow. Your application that they're playing a game on your application, whatever it is, and you're saving your preferences to the cloud, they get their tablet and install it, and they can continue playing because your preferences come straight back down with the new install. So I definitely advocate that. It's not just for shared preferences. You can back up databases, you can back up blobs of data, you can do other things, but shared preferences, it's a very, very quick win. It's like 3 or 4 lines of code to back up your shared preferences. And the next one, after backup helping, another cloud service provided, is the cloud-to-device messaging. Is anybody using cloud-to-device messaging? 1? 2? Okay. Good features of Android market. Cloud-to-device messaging uses that same back channel that we've got open for Google Talk and Gmail and other pings. So if you're using cloud-to-device messaging, it's not opening new connections on the device. It's not using extra power on the device. We've got constantly this one back channel. Maybe you don't know this. I didn't know this even 2 weeks ago. Those little icons at the top for Wi-Fi and 3G are sometimes white and sometimes green. And you might wonder, why on earth are they white today, and why were they green yesterday, and why is my internet bad today? If they're green, it means that our back channel to the server has managed to connect and it's currently open. And you can check that. Next time it's white, go and have a look. Run Google Talk, and you'll see it says signing in. And once it's signed in, they all turn green again. And that means that your Gmail connection's open, your Gtalk connection's open, your cloud-to-device messaging connection's open. And if they go white, it's had trouble connecting either through to an internet server or having trouble connecting back to our servers. So it's worth picking Google Talk in that case. So cloud-to-device messaging, much better, much better than polling for data. If you've got an application that needs to update every half an hour or needs to check for new updates, needs to see if a stream's updated, please do it through C2DM because it takes no battery. And the user gets to find out as soon as something's happened. They don't have to wait for your 30-minute polling time. So again, one of these little diagrams. Your server, start at the bottom. In fact, your application, it starts on the red bar in the middle. Your application registers with the C2DM service. When it's installed on a phone and runs, it says, I'm now online, and that gets propagated to our C2DM servers. And it also pings down to your server to say that I'm online as well. Then your server, whenever it wants, can send messages up to our server directly, server to server, cloud-to-device messaging, goes across, and then our servers broadcast it out through our secure channel to all the devices. And this is used by some big applications. You can look at the rate limits for this, and I think we're stating kind of 200,000 broadcasts an hour as a reasonable rate. But if you need to get those increased, you can just, there's a box you can fill in, you can get them increased, you can get your rate limits increased. Twitter application on Android is using C2DM to broadcast out all the tweets to all the users on all the Android devices. So it's pretty capable service. I think we limit it, we throttle it at about 1,000 messages a second, and as many devices as you want to get access to. Okay. Let me see if I can remember then. We had Market, what was the first one? Multiple APK, LVL, analytics. What else? Sorry? In-app billing, cloud-to-device messaging, and I've got a terrible memory. I need to take photos of everything to remember anything at all. But it was all there. No, it's true. It's not funny. It was all there. And if you have any questions on it, now's a good time to ask. That was the Android Market for Developers talk. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. I should have pointed out the hashtag at the start, shouldn't I? I know it was on the screen, but we're running on the hashtag ThinkM11. We have been all day. So if you've got tweets to put out, #ThinkM11. And that's me, plus, and on Twitter. Has anybody got any questions? We can fire a microphone round if anyone wants to ask anything, and we can translate from Italian to English as well, if you have a question in Italian. Anything at all? Talks are never that complete. You don't have questions. No? Oh, we've got one. Question at the side over there. That's exciting. It's always good to have at least one question. He's not planted.
Hi. Vediamo se riesco a farla in inglese, se qualcuno riesce a tradurmi. Io rappresento un tipo di aziende che non è propriamente customer, tipo di applicazioni classiche che vanno a tutti i tipi di utenti, ma soltanto a determinate cose. E volevo sapere, in caso di monitor di server per flussi dati, si può usare il cloud per messaggiare tra un cellulare Android che deve monitorare una determinata situazione e il server?
That's a long question to translate.
Server nostro, applicazione Android.
He's asking if it's possible to use the cloud service to connect from his mobile phone to his private server.
No, the cloud service messaging only goes from our servers to the device.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, no problem.
Here, please. Here I am.
Hey.
Okay. We are developing an application, a business application linked to a web service we sell with a monthly fee.
Okay.
The application should be free because it's an add to the to our service, but in Google Market is not allowed to publish free applications linked to a pay service. So, how to solve this problem, or eventually how to sell an application with a monthly fee?
Yeah, it's a good question. At the moment, we don't have a subscription service billing model inside Android Market. So you would have to manage it inside your application yourself, that once a month it asks the user to purchase another in-app billing. That's the only solution that we have right now for that particular problem. Does your service, is it just for Android?
Yes, my service is for every business company who want to use it, but the only phone supported for the Plus that we have made is only Android.
So when you purchase the subscription, the only benefit from that subscription is on Android? Or you're purchasing access to the website as well?
Make it simply. We are developing a CRM with a phone tracking system.
So all I'm saying is, if the subscription is actually allowing you access to your CRM service as well, and it also allows access to the Android application, then it's okay to use your own billing. But if the subscription is only for the Android application on a recurring basis, then you have to do it through the Android Market. Do you get the difference? So, for example, the Telegraph newspaper in the UK, you can buy a subscription to the Telegraph newspaper, and you get your paper delivered every week. And part of that subscription, you also get access to the paper on the Android phone. In this case, it's absolutely fine for the newspaper to charge users through their own billing system. Whereas if they had an application only on Android and they were charging for a monthly access, then they would have to charge that through the phone because the user gets no benefit outside of the Android phone itself. Yeah? Okay. Oh, we got one at the front here in blue.
Un Android developer a chi fattura gli incassi da Google Checkout o AdMob?
An Android developer, to who does he do the invoice? To where does he do the invoicing when it's about? Thanks. An Android developer, who does he invoice to when he uses in-app purchasing?
Uh-huh. So the Google Checkout does the invoicing on your behalf? No, you get paid by Google Checkout.
Android developer
Yeah.
don't invoice.
No.
No.
No. There's no need.
Anybody.
So you make the purchase. It gets cleared through Google Checkout. We take our 30% and we pay you the other 70%.
Okay.
And we clear the transaction from the user on your behalf. So there's no invoicing to send out.
And you invoice to all the
We send an email to the user who's purchased it, saying you have purchased this. It was charged this much to your credit card. So we send that out from Google Checkout automatically.
Okay, and that's the same for AdMob.
AdMob's different, okay, because the user isn't paying for anything on AdMob.
No.
I'm probably not the right person to ask about the AdMob flow, but it's very similar. There's two use cases in AdMob. Either you're advertising or you're placing ads in your application.
Yes.
If you place ads in your application, you can log into AdMob and you'll see your account balance going up, and then you can just extract the funds when you want, or it gets paid every 30 days.
And we don't have to invoice to Google.
There's no invoicing again in AdMob. No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Perfect. What's that?
Se qualcuno vuole prendere una piccola pausa, ricominciamo verso le 3:30 con la seconda sessione.
Okay. Oh. Have you just gone into the break in Italian without telling me? I was about to sit down and do a live coding demo, but okay. We can do the view pager when you all come back. Have a nice break.
Ricominciamo. Il bravo Richard farà una sessione di coding live sullo schermo grande. Grazie.
Hello? Is this thing on? Ah, there we go. Okay, so I was just about, before the break, to do a little demonstration. So we'll do it after the break instead to get you all settled back down again. So any Android developers in the audience will probably at some point have been asked to write a smooth scrolling set of views where you can scroll horizontally between the views, a bit like the home screen of Android, where you have things on the screen and you swipe it and it tracks your finger and it looks great. Well, recently, maybe back in July or August, we added a new feature to the Android compatibility library called the View Pager. And the View Pager means that now, instead of mucking about with the gallery view, which was never meant for doing this anyway, but everyone tries and everyone finds it doesn't work very well, instead of mucking about with the gallery, now you can use the View Pager to add horizontally swiping views, which track your finger, into your Android applications. So I'm going to run through in the next 5 minutes just to settle everyone down after the break. Just going to run through a View Pager quickly. So we're going to see on the device, I've got my Eclipse window up here. And my device is just there. It's kind of slow at tracking, but you can see that's my device. So if I switch back to Eclipse, I'm just going to create a new project. In the layout file, add a View Pager. And then in the source for the project, using a pager adapter, because a View Pager is a lot like a list view and a gallery, which they use a base adapter to serve up all the data. With a View Pager, it uses a pager adapter to serve up the pages. Very similar thing where it says, I need the next page, I need the next page, I need the next page. And you create them and you add them into the stack. And then you can see them scrolling around. Okay. So we get a bit of techie Android goodness on the screen. Let's do File, New, Android Project. Hopefully that's not too new to most of you. Can I move my phone here? Okay. Project name is going to be View Pager Milan. We'll stick it for Android. If any of you haven't seen the creation of an Android project before, this is what it looks like. com.example. I think mobile. Android. View Pager. That's quite a long package name. It'll do. Okay, so you press finish, and you get a new Android project. It's got a little red cross beside it, because in the bottom corner of the screen, you can see it's building the workspace. Okay. So when you do a File, New Android project, you get this. It has a source file and some resources. And this is Hello World. The Android SDK always creates you Hello World as your default project. And your default project has a layout, which is defined here, main.xml. All Android layouts are done in XML files. Let me just move this down a bit. Just wait for the little Mac to catch up. And you can see that when it lays out, it's going to say Hello World, View Pager Milan activity. And that's the XML that defines the layout. So we've got a linear layout, the most popular type of layout in Android. It's a vertical linear layout. So all the view types that I put inside it are going to get stacked on top of each other. If I change this orientation to horizontal, then all the elements would be stacked side by side. So like if I put 3 buttons on, they'd go side by side. If I put it in vertical, they'd go underneath. So that's the definition of the view of Hello World in Android. And the source looks like that. That's the whole source for the application. All it does is set the content view to the resource file under layouts called main, which is over here, the resource file under layouts called main. So we're going to switch this. As I say, View Pager was added into the Android compatibility library, which is a set of functionality we want to maintain on the outside of the SDK in a separate timeline. And the Android SDK here, under Android Tools for your project, allows you to add the compatibility library in. And by doing this, you get access to all those features of the compatibility library, which you can find at developer.android.com. Okay, so now the compatibility library is added. There's a lib file down here called Android Support v4.jar. And now I should be able to access the View Pager class. So if I do View Pager VP, it'll say error. I can ask it what the error is. It says, would you like to import View Pager? And in the imports now, we have the View Pager. And I did that so that I can copy this, which is the class for the View Pager, and put it in my layout down here. So instead of text view, I now just want a View Pager. And Android layout widths and heights, we want to fill the parent on both. So now we have a View Pager inside our layout. It's the only thing on the screen, and it fills the whole width and the whole height of the screen. Get rid of this because it's irrelevant. And I'm going to give it an ID so that I can find it inside the code. And we'll just call it View Pager. And save that. Okay, so that's the entire layout file done. We now have a View Pager inside our application instead of a text view. And in here now, using that Android favorite of find view by ID, I'm using control space all the time here to do the context completion. If you use Eclipse, pretty much control space can write your entire application for you. It just knows everything. So find view by ID again. As soon as I do the dot, it's going to say, what do you want? And I want an ID, and press dot, and I'm going to say View Pager. So it's already populated this from the XML file that we just created. And as I mentioned right at the beginning, the views inside of View Pager, as you scroll between each one, are served up by something called a pager adapter. So we need to create ourselves a pager adapter. So I want to make a little private class here called Milan pager adapter. And it's going to extend pager adapter. And Eclipse is going to complain and say that you must write these unimplemented methods. Because pager adapter is an abstract class, I have to actually implement the classes, the methods inside it. So I double click on it. I'll make this a bit bigger. And Eclipse has filled in all the methods that we need to do. Fortunately, most of these aren't important. Start update gets called when the screen starts scrolling, And it's just so if you want to do something like change the tabs at the top of the screen, you can listen here for start update. But we don't want to do that. So I'll just shrink it down. Save state again. We're not going to have any state, so we don't need to worry about that. Restore state. We don't need to worry about that. Is view from object, instantiate item, get count. We do need, but we don't need finish update. So we'll get rid of that. All this code is online. I'll show you the link for it later as well. And destroy item we need. So to finish this project off, we just need to implement these 4 methods. Get count is the number of views that we're going to be serving up. So I'm just going to static it up here. Private static final int num items equals 10. You can make that anything you want. So get count is just going to return the number of items. Is view from object is an not return true, that would go horribly wrong. It's an interesting method. It's there because the view pager doesn't know, out of all the objects it's trying to lay out on the screen at any one time, which ones belong to which pages. So you actually, in this case, because we're just using simple text views, we can say there is only one object. So if the object you're trying to lay out is the object you're passing me, then it's the right one. If you have a more complex view, you have to maintain that hierarchy yourselves and say this object belongs to this view. But you don't need to worry about that right now. So the only 2 things left are instantiate and destroy. I'll rename some of these arguments to make it more obvious. The view that's passed in is actually the view pager. The integer there is the position of the page that you're deleting. And the object is the view itself. So when we're destroying the item, we can say view pager collection, control spacing again, dot remove view. And the one we're going to remove is going to be the arg2 at the end. That's the view. I'll rename it to view because then it makes more sense. I'll fix that little red line in a minute. And then instantiate item is the only thing left. So this one here is the page, what we're going to put inside each of these pages in the view pager. And we're going to keep it really, really simple by just giving it a text view. So text view TV is a new text view. And what's it going to complain about straight away? Does anyone know why that's red? It's the good old Android thing that you have to have a context everywhere, and I haven't got a context to pass in. So as is always in Android, you end up passing the context around absolutely everywhere. So I'll create a new constructor so that I can pass the context in, and a new private variable here. And just set those together, so the M context. So now in my own little private class, I have the context of this application, which means that when I'm creating a text view down here, I can pass it in. We get the text view. Eclipse is complaining because I haven't imported text view. Okay, things we can do in the text view are clearly set the text. So the text view text, we're going to say welcome. I wish I could do this in Italian. How do you say welcome to Think Mobile in Italian? Oh God, that's impossible. Okay, beh? Yeah? Is this right? Ciao! Ciao, Think Mobile. Thank you, Nick, for saving my ass. Okay, and then these views up here, I should say again. I wish it filled this in for you. It's the collection. That's the view pager, and the int is the position that you're adding it onto. So I'm going to just put the position down here. So each page you're just going to say, ciao, think mobile, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's set a text size, control space, text size. We'll go for like 40, it's quite big. And we'll set the text color. This is a ARGB field, so we'll go in hex, FF, A, 4C6. That's memory blocking again. Who knows what A4C639 is? Who's wearing A4C639 right now? Yeah, anyone who's got the Android t-shirts on the front? A4C639 is the color of the droid. It is our Android green, and you can see that. On the back of all the Google I/O t-shirts we gave out, it had A4C639 in Morse code. I'm not sure many people figured it out. It was a little bit obscure. size and color. I think that's probably it. And then we can return that text view, because that's what it's asking for. There's one more thing with view pages. Because this is a collection of views, it's up to the developer, and it says this in the documentation as well, it's up to the developer to add their views into the view pager and also remove them from the view pager as well. So we've already removed it up here, and now we know it's a text view, we can put that in there. So we've removed it up there, but we also need to add it down here. So we can say view pager. We're casting the collection because we know what it is. Dot add view. And we'll add text view into position 0 because every time it's asking for a new one, it's asking you to put it on the start of the stack. So that is a pager adapter. You have an instantiate. When it's asking for new views to be created, we're just passing back a text view. It has a destroy when they go off the end of the screen. And you'll notice that it passes you back your view during the destroy. So as they're sliding off the end of the screen, it gives you your view back. You can choose to recycle that view if you want. Here, I'm not recycling it. I'm just removing it and destroying it. Number of items, and the is view from object is just for the layout. So the final thing, hopefully, would be up here. We have our view pager, and we just need to set the adapter on it. And we're going to do that by our new Milan pager adapter. Oh, context is this, which we just created. And because I've done this before, and I know that black on green doesn't look as good as green on white, maybe it does. Anyway, I'm just going to change the background color. My design skills are poor, as you'll find out very soon. 0x white. That's okay. That's kind of ARGB white. There's something wrong. I've got a little cross up there. There's no crosses anywhere else. Let's just see. Who knows what that is? Standard trick. Just switch it over to there it goes. I think the compatibility library has something in it. No. Oh, it's this one here. Okay. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'll just stick with 6. Clearly that feels not... it's a hash, not a 0x, right? Who wants that? Okay, sorry. My bad. 0x, hex when you're writing code, hash, hex when you're writing XML files, clearly. So my phone screen is here. Risky times. I'm going to run the application. Hopefully we'll get a view pager on the home screen, and then Nick can do his talk, and we can all get on with Think Mobile Milan. So at the bottom it says it's installing. Could be a force close. If it is, please don't boo me. Oh, I'll turn it the right around so you can see it. Ciao Think Mobile 0, and we can scroll very smoothly. I know it's not smooth on the screen. With our view pager through all those things. That's it. View pager on Android. Use it to make your applications look twice as awesome. Sorry about the sideways thing. And now I will hand over to Nick for excellence in the Android UI. First of all, I'll shut down Eclipse as well. Awesome. And excuse me for a second.
Awesome.
There
Cheers,
we go.
Rich.
All right, thanks very much. Go ahead, Nick.
Another round of applause for Rich. Good job. So hi, it's really exciting to be here. This is my first time in Milan, and I'm loving the weather and the food and seeing so many of you. It's really, really great, so thanks for having us. My name is Nick Butcher, and I'm also an Android developer advocate. And what that means is Rich and I, our job is to be here to help people like you, to help anyone making Android apps, to make them the best possible apps they can be. So, you know, spreading best practices like this or answering your questions. So if you have any, my contact details are up there, so you can get hold of me on Google Plus or on Twitter. And if you want to live tweet with this, or live plus with this event, then there's the hashtag again, which is FigM11. So in my role as an Android developer advocate, one of the most frequent, the most frequent question I get all the time is this: how do I get featured? There you go. So everyone wants to know, like, how do I get featured? So again, earlier on, Rich asked, how many of you have an Android app in the market? Put your hands up. Okay, a good number of you do. How many of you, of those people, want to be featured? How many of you have been featured? One guy. Okay, one guy. At any one time, there's 30 applications globally being featured, and we can locally substitute them in for regional apps. So it's quite a hard thing to do. So obviously, the answer is you have to be really, really good. If you put together an app with an okay functionality but a bad UI, then there's no way you're ever going to get into this promotional slot. So I think UI is really important. I mean, it's your chance to express to your users how good your application. It's the first impression they get when they fire it up. It's very important. Making a good UI is necessary but not sufficient to getting featured. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some best practices for creating Android UIs, and I'm going to talk about what's new and important. I guess the next most often question I'm getting asked is what's coming in ice cream sandwich. Well, I'd love to tell you something more about it. I can't until it's released. But I would say, look at Honeycomb. Honeycomb represents the future of Android. Ice cream sandwich is going to be very similar, but it's going to work on a range of platforms. So on phones, on tablets, on Google TV, you're going to have this one platform running everywhere. So I'm going to focus a lot on some of the new innovations in Honeycomb, and you can look towards those for what's going to be coming around the corner very soon. I'm also going to talk about some techniques for creating apps which run across those platforms. So as Rich earlier said, you want to aim towards having one single application, one APK, which runs everywhere. So yeah, I'm going to talk about some of the visual design, the inspiration that inspired the look and feel of Honeycomb. And then I'm going to go into some tablet UI patterns. So patterns which are describing ways of having your UI that works very well, that we're encouraging, and that will be immediately recognized and familiar to your users. I'm going to follow that up with some do's and don'ts, what you should be doing and what you definitely shouldn't be doing, and then finish off with a worked example. So Honeycomb came out in early this year, and it had a very new look and feel. Prior to Honeycomb, Gingerbread, Android had a kind of a more of a kind of cartoony style almost, but Honeycomb brought the holographic UI. In the holographic UI, it's very much focused on the content with very little chrome around it, very little boxes or bounding areas. So you get, like the home screen here, for example, is quite sparse and it's just your content. Here's some of the images that were the designers of Honeycomb used when they were kind of thinking of inspiration that they wanted to go into it. I think they watched a bit too much Tron, but it looks very nice. It's very clean, very crisp. You have two kind of sets of look and feels. This is very much the dark feel, and you also have the hollow light feel. So these are a bunch of controls and widgets you can use to construct your UIs, but on a light background. So as I said, it's kind of removing all the kind of chrome around it, so you concentrate on the experience that the user is trying to complete. So on the left, you have the phone application composing an email with lots of boxes and things going on, and on the right, a very simplified view. So that's the kind of look and feel that Honeycomb brought in, and that's going to be coming to phones very soon. So some patterns and framework features to achieve that. So first off, I'll just explain what I mean by a pattern. So when we talk about a UI pattern, it's a generalized solution to a problem. So it's a standard way of doing something. Some of these patterns have framework support. So it's patterns that we said, this is definitely the way you should be doing it, and we're going to build it into the Android framework and make it really easy for you to use them. But while patterns are very strong, they're kind of guidelines. They're not hard and fast solutions. So if you're creating, say, a 3D shooter game, for example, you might have your own look and feel you want to go for, and you don't have to stick with it. But for most of the apps out there, then these patterns are going to be very powerful and familiar. And I'll go into deep dive into a few of these patterns specifically. So the first I'd like to talk about is my favorite, is the action bar. So this is the action bar at the top there. Can you see? Ooh. My clicker's gone a little bit crazy. There we go. So the bar at the top here, so this is what we call the action bar. So it's a bar at the top providing a consistent way of showing where you are and some common actions that you can perform on this page. So, thus the name action bar. It's not a brand new pattern. It was first introduced back in last year's Google I/O, where we spoke about it and launched the work with Twitter on their application. So that kind of launched the pattern, and it's great to see that many apps out there have already adopted it and started using it. So it provides this dedicated real estate at the top, and it's kind of users are getting used to knowing that when you want to see where I am or what I can do on this page, they look at the top of the screen. It also supports some other actions, such as a great place to look for the menu or for search functionality. So this is a very strong pattern, and in Honeycomb we actually decided this should be the default way of navigating and showing actions within your app, so we baked it into the platform. So now on tablets with their expanded real estate, we've kind of built upon that pattern. So not only can you see the actions on the right still, but there's 3 things you can do. So on the left you have the application icon, which gives you that sense of place. Next up you have a set of view details telling you kind of where you are and what you can do. And on the far right are those actions. So looking at them individually, you can from the left you can even have the standard icon right there. We've also introduced a new navigation paradigm. So there's this up. So if you see on the Gmail example up there, it has a small arrow next to it. So straight from the action bar you can now navigate up. Or if you want a more branded experience, like our YouTube application, you can replace the standard icon with a richer image. Next up, you have some more details on the view. So this kind of shows where you are or offering a form of navigation. So interestingly enough, the search bar in Maps considers searching the primary way you might navigate around the content within Maps. So it puts search on the left-hand side because this is kind of navigation. Whereas other apps where search isn't the primary navigation, you might find it located elsewhere. And on the far right-hand side, you have these actions. So this is what you can do on the screen. There's obviously not room for every single action you might be able to perform on the screen. So we have this concept of an overflow. So as you can see, these are some actions up here, and then this little disclosure button here will overflow, revealing further actions you can perform. So this kind of keeps it tidy. It also works great. So on Android, you're never facing a kind of constant screen width. You know, if the user, say, rotates their tablet, there's going to be a different amount of space available. So using this overflow construct, less important actions can be put into the overflow menu. The other thing to note is that users generally scan the actions from left to right. So your most important primary action wants to be the furthest left. So if you're composing an email, send might be the primary action, so you want to have that on the furthest left. The action bar's next trick is its way to change itself when you're dealing with selections. So if you're selecting items within your UI, you can actually replace the screen real estate and show this contextual action bar. This is really great because you don't have to kind of take up extra room on your screen, and it's a consistent place that people look to deal with selections. Like the standard action bar, it has kind of 3 primary things it does. So you kind of have the done button to dismiss it, which replaces the icon. Next, you have some information about your selection. So here, this is an example from Gmail. It shows you've selected 3 items. And then on the right, you have the actions which you can perform. And to implement that, look at the action mode class. You can do that yourself, or if you work with things like list view selection mode, it has a multi-selection mode that will work with this for you. So to implement an action bar on Honeycomb, if you target SDK 11, which is when Honeycomb was introduced, by default you'll get the theme.holo, so the holo theme we talked about earlier on. So if you have a holo theme set on your application, by default you'll get one of these action bars. You can of course hide it by changing the system theme or setting a window feature, but yeah, it'll be there by default. And then to populate the actions in the top right, it's very similar to using your menu XML. So you specify your action items in your menu XML, and there's this new flag called show as action. So you can say, this menu item I actually want up in the action bar, show it as an action item. And just because it's a standard way of doing things doesn't mean they all have to look and feel exactly the same. So there's a blog article on the Android developers blog, which I wrote, about how to customize it. So you can set all the styles and themes so it fits in with the branding of your application. So that's great if you're targeting Honeycomb, you're writing a tablet application. But for those of you who want to support further back onto phones and so forth, then there's other solutions out there. I guess the simplest and easiest is to kind of roll your own and just write a view which is, so many pixels high and wide, that looks like the action bar, and that's very easy to do. And there's some standard code out there, like in our IO shared application, which you can grab and copy and paste into your own apps and implement it that way. Otherwise, there's some support libraries. So Green Droid is awesome, and Action Bar Sherlock is very cool. So these will be easy ways to implement this further back. Alternatively, you can just defer to the standard options menu as well. And we just published a new article on our developers blog talking about Ice Cream Sandwich and it's coming. And in that, we stated that if you write to the framework APIs, then we'll handle how the action bar is laid out on phones and so forth. So if you just use the built-in action bar, there's a few tips you should follow, then it should just work on a phone, and we'll handle that for you. So key to that is using this show as action attribute on your menu items and using it intelligently. So you can set here show as action always if you want your icon to appear there. But obviously when your app is running on a phone with greatly reduced space, there's not always going to be room to have tons of actions shown up there. So what you really want to do is prioritize the items you want to have shown up there, have the most prioritized items first, and then set the if room as the setting for the show as action. So then on a phone with less real estate, you'll show just a few actions and then they'll overflow somewhere, whereas on a tablet you might show a few more. The other tip to follow is to use the built-in navigation modes. So if you're using the navigation modes like tabs or the drop-down navigation, then if you write that, it will appear one way on tablets, and then it'll just work on Ice Cream Sandwich phones as well. So here's an example of how you might write a single action bar, and here, so we're using the action bar with a couple of items, and they've overflowed the rest under the standard options menu. You hit the button on your phone. On our tablet, we have a bit more room, so we show a few more of the actions right front and center on the screen, and then the rest of them get overflown into the overflow menu. And here, the tabs, there's plenty of room for the navigation in the action bar itself, whereas on the phone, they're overflowed to the row underneath. So that's the kind of familiar look and feel between the two device types. The next pattern I want to go on to is multi-pane layouts. So with this variety of screen sizes and real estate, it looks pretty bad if you just have a run of text going all the way across, especially on tablets. I mean, it's too long, it just feels kind of wrong. So we're really encouraging you to think about your content and think about how wide it needs to be and what makes sense and what would flow well. And we've provided a few constructs to aid that. It's also great for providing more context. So something that might have been a full screen view on a phone, you can actually have the view you came from next to it. So you provide some context of where you are, a sense of place. So settings is a great example. On the tablet, you have where you came from and some details next to each other. So you have that deeper sense of context. And as a general tip, if you're laying out multi-pane views, you want to go from least to most detailed in left to right, because that's how people scan. So to support these multi-pane layouts, we introduced the fragment class. So the fragment allows you to kind of decompose your layout instead of an activity into smaller chunks. So you create these small chunks, and then you lay them out differently. So on a phone, it might be a chunk takes up the whole screen, and there's two screens. On a tablet with more room, you might lay them out next to each other. And what's great about fragments is we thought they were so awesome, we backported them into the compatibility library, which Richard was talking about earlier. So does anyone know how far back fragments go, like in the compatibility library, which Android version you can use them back to? 1.5? 1.6? Who said that? That was down there. Yeah, you can get a prize for that. That's good. You catch? Interception. Good job. So here's an example. So this might be, say, a contacts application, which has got two levels. You might have a list of contacts and then a contact detail. And on a phone where there isn't a huge amount of room, you might have the list taking up the whole screen. Clicking one takes you to a detail view. Whereas on a tablet with more real estate, you might have the list on the left. Clicking one just populates the view right next to it on the same screen. So to implement that, you need to have these two fragments communicating to each other. And here you can see on the phone, we've used two activities, and on the tablet, just one. So to implement that, there's a number of ways you can do this. Most of our code samples on developer.android.com use the first method. So they define an interface and have callbacks on each other so that the fragments can talk to each other via this callback mechanism. So that's one way of doing direct communication. The other way is to use the fragment set target fragment method. So there you can say that this fragment targets this fragment, so its messages should be passed to each other that way. Or when you're on a tablet, you can have, say, the activity implement single task or single top flag. That's the word I was looking for. And then each intent be passed to each other will be delivered to the activities on new intent method. So then you can just handle it there and then talk to the fragment that you need to set up. So fragments are also especially handy for handling rotation changes. Because you have these reusable chunks, you just specify a new layout land or layout port and just lay them out very differently. So you just write the code once and then lay it out all the time. So there's a few techniques here which we kind of been advising. So stretch layouts, this is the simplest case. It'll just kind of say use a third here and 2/3 for this one. Stack is a great one. So if you look at the YouTube app on Honeycomb, this does this. So it kind of changes the layout by stacking the fragments differently. Expand collapse is a great one. So if you take a look at Google Talk, this works really well if your left pane has kind of strong icons. So in Google Talk, you have all the lists of your friends who you can talk to, and they have their images. And in landscape, we've got more space. You see their names, and then when you rotate it, it collapses it down to their pictures. So you don't use as much space, but you still get the full kind of ability to recognize your friends. That works very well. And the last example here I've given is showing and hiding. So if there's just not too much room, or you want to use the fact that they've rotated their device as a strong signal that they're kind of reading, perhaps, then you can do that. So in Gmail, you might have the list of messages and the message body. If you rotate, it's quite a strong signal that I'm concentrating on this message. I want to read it. So it actually just hides the list, and it just kind of has the message body there. But if you're doing that, you should preserve functional parity. So you need to make it really easy to kind of pull that message list back and restore it. There we go. The next panel I'm going to talk about is app navigation. So this is kind of quite a big change in Honeycomb, and it's going to be brought forward into Ice Cream Sandwich as well. And it's basically we've provided lots more ways to have deep linking into your content of your app. So rather than just having a dumb icon which just takes you to the start of your app, there's now tons of ways to deep link into your application. So in Honeycomb, you have much richer notification system, so that can pop up and link straight into your app. Very rich interactive widgets, which can show lots and lots of different content in your app and take you straight to it. Or also the recent tasks. So all of these ways are going to jump straight into some content in your app, and you need to handle that. The reason this is so important, and why I think it's a really good thing, is that users have Android's traditionally relied on temporal memory, so using the back button to walk back in the stack to, what was I doing last, what was I doing before, or long pressing the home button to switch to some recent tasks. And that's great, but users actually have very strong structural memory. So it's easy to remember that, I want to go to the home screen or level up from where I am. I remember I'm in this application, but I need to go to a different level in it. And so with the new navigation paradigms in Honeycomb, then you can tap into those kind of things, and I'll go for an example. So the two mechanisms we have, Android, since its first version, has had the system back button, so this will walk you back through the stack. But the new paradigm we've introduced is this kind of notion of going up in the application. I think of it a lot like on the web. So on a website, you might have a masthead with your kind of logo on the top page. It's very similar to that. Clicking that, this is going to take me back to the home activity, up a level. So as a worked example of that, if you're, say, in the contacts application, and you choose one of the contacts, you get its details screen. Pressing back is going to take you back to the contacts list. And so will up. They're the same thing in this place. So back and up will take you back to the contacts list. But if instead of that, if I instead click compose a new message, so I've gone from contact to contact detail, compose an email. Clicking back should take me back in the stack to the contact list. But if instead, from the compose email, I hit up, it should take me back to the Gmail homepage, because I'm already in that new kind of task. So those are the different kind of ways you will have the navigation going. The next pattern I want to talk about is going beyond the list. many Android applications, kind of your entry point is like a list, like a long list of things, and that works pretty well on a phone because you've got a small amount of UI. On these tablets and larger devices, you have big screens, big beautiful screens with powerful GPUs, and you want to think of more kind of visually engaging ways of interacting with your users. It's also an opportunity to provide some hero moments to really show off your content and make engaging with your application really fun. So in Honeycomb, we introduced some of the default apps do this very well. So the books application on the left here, it has a carousel where you can fling the books around in like a 3D world. YouTube application has this video wall, and it's just beautiful. If you haven't tried it yet, I recommend you take a look at it. And at the top, we've got an example of a carousel. So the music application, for example, has this 3D view of album covers. So rather than just a flat list, you have this very interactive and beautiful screen. To help you to create these kind of hero moments, we've open sourced some code. So if you go to this jump link here, we've open sourced the carousel, and that uses the very advanced render script technology, which is a very high performance way of doing 3D kind of graphics and imagery. So if you follow that, you can just drop it into your application, implement a few callbacks. I put together a 3D kind of carousel view in about 5 minutes. It looks really great. You can also use the view pager, which Rich just walked you through an example of doing. So you can use that to great effect to have some very nice kind of swiping views and kind of like have some big kind of bold graphics. So those are the patterns I wanted to talk about and go into a few kind of do's and don'ts. So as we've been talking about all day, is do aim for a single APK. I mean, that should be your goal, to have a single app that just optimizes itself depending on the platform it runs on. So you have this one app, and if you kind of buy a tablet, it installs the tablet version, and it just works. The same application just works. To make that easier for you, do use the compatibility library. So the compatibility library will give you things like fragment support back to 1.6. It will give you the view pager and a bunch of other really handy things like LRU caches and stuff like that. So do check that out if you haven't yet. If you're going to customize the Holo theme, do it completely. There's nothing worse than if some things kind of look one way and the other thing looks a customized way. It's quite visually jarring. So if you're going to customize fully. And definitely follow both landscape and portrait support. There's nothing worse than firing up an application on a tablet and it's locked to portrait. It's very kind of jarring. You're holding it one way and like suddenly the app's over here. So definitely do that. To make that easier, do extract your dimensions for your phone. So most of you probably know how to do drawable dash HTML, HDPI and so on and so forth to provide optimized image assets for your apps. But you can do the same for not only strings, but also dimension files, integer files, Boolean files. So you can have, in your values, you can do values dash x large, for example, and have a dimens file in there. So, for example, you could specify a text size in a dimensions file. So that means the text, on a phone, it would load one version of the file. So you might get, say, 12 SP font. But on the tablet, you might want to load a bigger font, so you use an overridden version of the dimensions file. Okay. So yeah, do use the the resources framework to kind of have different assets that show your brand and your identity. You want the application to look familiar in an Android way, but to express your brand and identity. So using the resources mechanism, you can provide alternate resources if you're running on a smaller device or a larger device, and so on and so forth. So in this example here, if you specify a drawable with a large and V11, this will be picked up by tablet Honeycomb devices. So you can provide some optimized tabs and have assets which look right at home on that device. Next up, do enable hardware acceleration. Hardware acceleration has arrived. It's here on Android, and it's pretty simple to opt into. You just specify hardware accelerated equals true in your application attribute in your Android manifest, and that will enable the acceleration pipeline. The reason it's opt-in rather than automatic is because if you're doing any custom drawing, you need to check to make sure that the hardware acceleration still works for you and it hasn't broken anything. It's kind of a new API. So do try this out on a Honeycomb tablet, and you'll just get an automatic speed boost. It's like the easiest kind of optimization you can ever do. So next, some don'ts. So don't assume that greater than API level 11 is tablet. I mean, that has been true up until now. but very soon you're going to have ice cream sandwich phones launching, which are going to have API level greater than 11, but they're going to be a phone device. So if you've hard-coded some logic into your application, assuming that greater than 11, greater than or equal to 11 is a tablet, then that's going to break soon. Don't assume that X large is a tablet. We've already seen some 7-inch devices, like from ViewSonic, launching with Honeycomb as well. So that's not an X large, that's just large. So you can't assume that X large is a tablet. And don't use very small fonts. Tablets are much bigger. You need to use this dimensions files in the resources framework to have bigger fonts on the bigger devices. Also, don't just think of tablets as bigger phones. If you look at the way people use tablets, they use them very differently to phones. I mean, most people say they use a tablet kind of at home on like you've got the TV on, you've got your feet up. It's kind of a casual browsing thing. So the kind of interaction you do is very different. A phone is very much used kind of on the go, like quick. I'm just checking my Twitter, I'm just checking some scores, I'm checking the news. Whereas on the tablets at home, you have much more chance to have an engaging, kind of casual, relaxed experience. So use this as an opportunity to rethink your app and think, well, is there something else the user might want to do in this kind of relaxed scenario? So to give you some examples of those things I've been talking about, I just want to walk you through some screenshots from the Google I/O shared, the Google I/O official application. So this is an application which we created to go along with the Google I/O conference every May in San Francisco. And it's a great example of an application that is one single APK which runs on phones and tablets and just optimizes for it. So as you can see here on the smaller form factor on the home page, you get a kind of a dashboard experience here and just kind of the key things you want to get to. But when the app runs on a tablet, we've got all this extra real estate. Rather than just kind of stretching it out and having this kind of very sparse experience, we can maintain the dashboard but then supplement it with a news feed showing latest stuff that's happening. So already you're kind of optimizing for the screen real estate it's on. Similarly, we go for we use the split view we talked about earlier. So like the contact example where you had a 2-level navigation on the phone, we put it next to each other on the tablet. So here you have kind of a schedule page, and here when you click on the scheduled item, you see the details for the session. So you can really utilize the screen real estate. And lastly, here we have like a sessions detail one. So here you can pick from a list for different sessions, and it shows the details here, and it's a 2-step on the tablet. So if you want to take a look at the code for this application, it's all open source. So you can go to this address here and grab the source code for the I/O application, and it's a great kind of worked example if you want to understand how to use fragments, have fragments talking to each other, how to use the action bar, how to use 2-pane layouts. So that's everything I wanted to tell you about, but yeah, I've run a bit short, so if there's any questions you want to ask me about Android UI, then yeah, please grab someone with a microphone. No questions? Surely not. Okay.
So I've noticed that Honeycomb UI tends to get messy. Messy.
How so?
Because went to shopping malls when Honeycomb came out, so to try the new devices.
Yeah.
And I noticed that once lots of people went through the devices and started putting in applications, widgets, and so on, the UI gets messy. There's a lot of things cluttering the screen, and you sometimes even have some kind of fear to touch the screen because you don't know where to place your finger.
Mm-hmm.
I am not an Apple fanboy, but I find that some kind of grid, some kind of how can I say, forced tidiness, let's call it this way, has to be present in touch devices. Because I've noticed that many things are interactive in Honeycomb. I mean, you can scroll small widgets, you can scroll bigger widgets, you have applications, you have notifications, you have clocks, analog clocks, and so on. Mm-hmm. But you can place them around in a way that sometimes seems confusing. And so the question is, did you notice this thing too? Because I am an interaction designer, so I tend to look at these things because it's part of my job. So I'm asking, is this an issue you came across when evaluating the UI design, or this is something you want actually to happen because you want people to feel extremely free? Because Android has this open source feel to it. So is this something you really wanted to happen, or something you didn't notice in the process, or something you didn't mind happening? So thank you.
No, it's a good question. So you're talking about the home screen in particular, not Honeycomb apps. You're talking about the home screen. Okay, so I kind of like the Honeycomb home screen, but I understand what you're talking about. I guess it comes down to choice. The user is free to put whatever apps they want on the home screen, and they're free to not as well. So if you want a very sparse home screen, which I kind of like, I don't really put very many apps on my home screen. I mostly have a couple of widgets so I can see my mail and a couple of apps I've been using lately. So I think it's a different thing when you're talking about a shop where users come in and they play with it and they do something, as compared to your device. I think tablets are deeply personalizable. Like people, they might share it, like look at some photos, but they want it back. This is my device. I'm logged into all my accounts. It's set up just the way I like it. So I think it's up to the user how tight and tidy they want it and how messy they want it. So I wouldn't say it was encouraged in the thinking, but I'd say it definitely wasn't. We weren't trying to stop people from doing that. And also, it being Android, you can of course just install a different home screen if you like. If you want to put ADW launcher or Go launcher or whatever on your device, then that is your choice. I think for the Honeycomb stock launcher, I think they went for a certain utility. And with the kind of scrollable widgets and stuff like that, I think it's very powerful, and you can create these, extensive screens. But it's up to the user how they use it. That's how I feel. Thank you.
Hi, this is also about Honeycomb UI. I feel that with Honeycomb, you guys made the choice very sharp, that it's going for a tech, like Tron-like UI, very, techie stuff. And will it be the same also in ICS? Because I feel that going so deeply in a way kind of steps some kind of application, like imagine an old-style application, a vintage application that really doesn't find its place in Honeycomb as it stands right now, while in the previous, probably more neutral Android UIs, more boring, but was, more apt as a platform because it wasn't more neutral. What do you think about that?
I agree. It's definitely a distinct look and feel, but I think that's a good thing that Android is actually setting the direction it wants the apps to go into and saying this is the Android look and feel. I feel like in the past we were too accepting, we were too wide open. You could, create such a wide range of looking applications and they would all feel kind of Android-y. I think it's a good thing that we're actually providing more direction, saying this is an Android way of doing things. I think for the majority of the apps that will be a benefit. I understand your concern about having an app which doesn't fit with that look and feel, but you can still create that application. I mean, there's going to be apps out there, kind of, like the Instagrams of the world, which have this kind of 80s feel photography or paper camera or something like that, which completely customizes the UI and doesn't look like the holographic way of doing things. And I think that's perfectly valid. I think that's, I'm creating an experience for the user, and my experience looks such a way. And part of the kind of experience of using the app is that it doesn't fit in, that it looks slightly different, and I think that's fine. But I think for the majority of the apps out there that need a bit more direction and saying, having a tighter look and feel, I think the direction we're going in with the holographic UI on phones and tablets is a good thing, and that it will have that kind of level of consistency. That's how I feel. Any other questions? Cool. All right. So next up, a few of you were brave enough to volunteer us to take a look at your applications that you've written and have launched on Android Market and give some feedback. So how do you want to do this? Should we... Cool.
Okay. Okay. So when you submitted your application to come here today, you put out some questions, and thank you very much for those. We'll run through a couple of those in a minute. And you also put in applications for review. So if your application's on the screen at the moment, can you put your hand up? We'll see if these people actually turned up. Any of them? Yeah, there's one. That's good. That's good.
Brave guy.
I might have mentioned, or I might have forgotten to mention, that there's a couple of phones down here, and the best apps that the audience vote are the best apps that get reviewed today, we'll get a phone. So is anybody else, because this guy's just kind of win, has anybody else written any of these applications?
Which is yours? Folder.
We downloaded the applications from the market for this particular.
Sorry?
But which one were you? Second one in.
No Androidiani.
No one from Androidiani or Shake and Rotate? No, someone's just scratching their head. It looked like a hand going up. That's a shame. Okay.
Only 2 could work.
Oh. No, it's okay. Which one are you? Oh, maybe. This one? uTool Translator. So we've got... Don't point down there. The second one in and the fourth one. uTool Translator and Folder Organizer. Cool. I think. Okay. So did anyone else submit an application that isn't on the list that they wanted reviewing? Maybe... Oh, that's interesting.
Should we switch this?
Yeah.
Can we switch to the HDMI? Thanks.
PushDoc or Alien Attack Lite or Cerberus. Oh, which one? Come on then. I can't even pronounce this one. Scrontrinado?
How do you pronounce that?
What's this? Scrontinado. Or Ryanair Flight. Anyone from Ryanair Flight? Alien Attack, as I say, PushDoc, Scrubber. Okay, we've got 4 anyway. We're going to run through these applications. I just need to plug some power into this little thing first. I'll power it up from here.
Next to the HDMI.
Oh, come on. It's disconnected from the internet as well. Where is it? Oh, okay. Come on. Just in case any of these need internet, we'll try and get it reconnected again. All right. Yeah. Got it.
Cool. Right, so folder organizer.
Folder organizer. It's a good example because it doesn't need the internet access and we don't have it right now. Do you want to? Can you just run through what folder organizer does for the audience? You can grab the microphone if you want. I'll hold the phone. Do you want the microphone there?
Can I speak in Italian?
Yeah, you can speak in Italian as long as you are nice.
Niente, questa è l'applicazione che ho scritto e ho rilasciato sull'Android Market. In pratica permette di organizzare le applicazioni, i bookmark, i contatti e le shortcut. In pratica è un folder replacement su Android. Quindi cliccando sulle applicazioni viene fuori la lista delle applicazioni. Cliccando su una singola applicazione è possibile associare una label in stile Gmail, diciamo. Quindi una volta associata la label, poi tornando sulla home è possibile aggiungere un widget con in pratica le applicazioni della label, e quindi si possono organizzare tutte le cose installate, le applicazioni installate sul telefono, ma anche i bookmark, i contatti e altre cose. E in più è possibile creare nuove shortcut a qualunque cosa, per esempio una playlist. No? This is the live version.
It is the live version, yeah.
Okay.
With maybe we didn't pay for it.
Basta. No,
Fantastic. So it gives you a much more flexible way of managing the icons and the folders on your desktop.
Yeah.
You can add in widgets and just completely manage all your...
widget. Insomma, con alcune home è anche scrollable. Ora
Can you reorder the icons inside the folders?
Yeah.
Maybe not in the light version.
Yeah.
No. Every time I was testing it, it said no, feature not in the light version. Do you use in-app billing for the upgrade, or do you send them to the market? Okay, to the market for an upgrade to premium.
Yes.
So I think this is a pretty good UI. You're using the action by pattern there we talked about. So you've got this consistent way of looking at it. It's going to be familiar to users when they pick it up. I know that these are the actions, these are the things I can do. I can add and I can sort, kind of thing, right? I like the fact that you're using the view pager as well.
Is it the view pager?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's for action by shell.
So this is much smoother than mine because we're running it from the HDMI on the phone now, but if you swipe between the views, that's what it should have looked like. It's a good use of view pager. It's cool. Yeah, and the tabs at the top. Okay, so remember this application because in 3 more applications' time, you're going to be voting for your favorite ones. Thank you very much.
So I think that's a good
folder
job.
organizer.
That's good. Oh, cool.
Okay.
So we're going to take out the HDMI for a minute and plug into this private network.
I think we have internet.
No, we don't.
That hasn't got the app's installed on it, right?
No, this is broadcasting a private.
Oh,
network.
I see. Okay, we're just switching
One
internet.
sec, we're going to get some internet access going.
Kind of feel like we should have done this in the break.
Yeah.
Come on.
Turning on.
Sorry about this.
There you go.
Okay. Which application were you?
Yeah. Portable hotspots are awesome.
Unless someone walks away with them, please don't walk away with the hotspot. Okay. Util translator. Yeah. Should just be here.
Insomma, è un'applicazione semplicissima che traduce qualsiasi testo o pagina web. È la mia prima applicazione, quindi è mia. Allora, quando si lancia abbiamo una schermata dove facendo c'è un help. Insomma, il momento sono un po' emozionato, non ho mai parlato in un poche parole. Quando si condivide un testo o una pagina web fa una traduzione e utilizza il Google Translate API. Allora andiamo in una pagina web, browser, ok. Andiamo su, non lo so, Engadget magari.
I'm looking at the guy with the hotspot.
Non funziona il browser. Non funziona. Non funziona l'applicazione.
Okay, but the thing I really like about this application, maybe you already explained it, is the fact that it's integrated with the share intent on the phone. So wherever you are in your phone, if you're on a text message or a web page or anywhere else, you can hold down and say share, and Util Translator appears in the list of things you can share to. So you can share text to it and just translate it from anywhere on the whole device, which is a really, really nice feature. It's also why the application itself doesn't need to have any UI, because you always just, wherever you are, you just say, I just want to translate this now, and it just comes up with a dialogue. You can see you can do auto-detection of language. Sorry, you can do auto detection of the text that's being translated, the language,
Yes.
and then you can choose what language you want to translate it to. So excellent use of one of the core system features of Android, which is that intent sharing capability.
The other thing I like about the app is the guide that shows you how to use it. I think your goal in designing a UI should be that it's obvious, that it's just really easy to use. But I think a first-time use guide can have a place to help that. So for users who might not be familiar, who are brand new to Android, might not be familiar with the Share framework, you've got that guide there telling them exactly how to use it, and I think that's valid. I think that's good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you need internet for your demo?
Yes.
Do you have to be happy with it? Which one were you?
Yes, Postino.
And you need internet?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll try one more
If
time.
you want, I have my personal.
we can connect to this one.
We're supposed to be connected to this hotspot, but the phone's...
The password was too small, that's why it didn't work.
Ah, okay.
And now you should have the program.
Okay. Obtaining IP address.
Hey.
Connected. Okay. Thank you for bearing with us on that. Applications. Okay.
Go to the market, please.
Which one?
If you go to the market, because I need to download the app.
Okay.
Market.
The beauty of hotspots. Tell you what, have you got the app on here?
Yes, but...
Okay, no, it's fine. Let's just
Okay.
do that. I'll bring the camera up.
I don't know if I have installed.
You don't have your own app installed on your
No,
own
because,
phone.
because I need space to test the application.
Oh.
You know, it's only a Nexus 1.
Oh.
No, I don't have it
Move it to
installed.
the SD. No?
No, sorry.
What do you go to the back of the queue? You download it, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Next
In the
up.
meantime, I'll
The
take a
next
picture
one?
of you. Yep. Okay. Okay. They won't be able to see the computer, but I can do that.
Do you want to talk us through it?
You want to
Tell everyone about it?
the things on the screen up there, so you can talk them through it, and I'll connect the computer to the same access point for you. So what does pushdoc do?
Okay. Niente, è un'applicazione per trasferire file dal telefono al computer senza usare cavetto USB e utilizza il wifi. Quindi questa è quell'applicazione, bisogna accenderla, compare un indirizzo sulla schermata principale che va inserito nel computer, in un browser.
Okay.
So you should put this address in.
I'm connected to the same network as you, and I need to go to 192.168.43.217.180. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
You're not able to see it, but it says
So
pushdoc is up and running. Magic.
So the phone il telefono funziona come server, ci si collega col computer e you can press launch.
Press launch. So you're running a web server on the
on the phone.
and I'm accessing it directly here.
And you can go to contents and you can just drag stuff, basta trasferire la roba dal browser all'applicazione che si lancia e le cose finiscono sul telefono.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So it's just going to transfer the documents straight over. Okay, so that was our third application. I hope you're remembering all of these. I've got a list of documents up here now. And the final, who's next? Thank you. Yeah? What application?
Developer of Alien Attack.
Alien Attack. Yeah, go for it.
Qui potete vedere, è un semplice gioco.
I think
è
the camera
una...
is still open. Is it okay, or do you need the SD card?
Yes. Okay.
I saw this, I think this one, hold on. The camera is doing something funny. Okay, maybe try now.
Ok. Potete vedere,
okay.
è un semplice gioco, di fatto l'unico scopo è quello di cercare di portare qualche ora di sano divertimento per le persone che vogliono passare pochi minuti di rilassatezza. È un casual game, quindi non è che non si richiede nessuna particolare partecipazione. È stato un esperimento di fatto, un primo gioco fatto solamente così, in uno stile molto vintage, come potete vedere, molto anni 80 di fatto. Però funzionale, mi ha dato la possibilità di vedere un po' come doveva funzionare il sistema dei giochi su Android e anche sondare le possibilità di marketing, tra cui la possibilità di vendere le applicazioni oppure di usare un sistema di sponsorizzazioni tipo AdMob. Quindi niente di che, niente di particolare, non è una funzione, non è un gioco, non è una utilità, non fa niente di particolarmente utile, però serve solo per divertirsi, semplicemente. Quello che forse serve ogni tanto.
Games are an interesting case because games are almost totally exempt from the UI guidelines in Android or on any of the platforms. You can look at most of the major games and they'll look the same across all the platforms because they have very strong branding and their own identity. So there's not much to comment on the game except it looks excellently playable.
One little tip while we're talking about games on devices, if you are going to start targeting tablets, which I hope your app runs on tablets as well, the navigation on tablets is by the system bar at the bottom. So your back, home button, recent button, they're all on the screen on the tablet. If you're doing a game or a video player or something very immersive content, what you want to do is you want to enter what's called lights out mode, and that dims down the buttons, the game button, the navigation buttons, to small dots so that they don't distract you while you're playing your immersive game. So yeah, that's an appeal to all games developers out there to make sure when you're on API version 11 and above that you're going into lights out mode. So otherwise, good job.
Okay, are we ready for the final?
Yes, we are installing. Okay.
We installed?
Yes.
Ready to go? Just made it?
Here.
Let's let this camera go again then. Oh, 2D. That was a 3D video.
You need the particular
If you get your eyes to cross, you'll be fine. Yeah.
Maybe put one of them down.
Okay.
Okay, well, what's the name of the application?
Okay, Postino. Yeah. You can simply shoot a photo or wait one moment, photo, snap new photo.
I wanted to move to a better position.
Okay, smile.
Cheesy.
Good. You look very, very good in photos.
Oh, did you see that? The camera is not enough to
and
left on the camera. This is a crazy device. You can't run the camera with a 12% battery.
WLG.
Okay, 3D again. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, once you have the photo, you can add a frame to the photo, for example. This one, very light. It's okay.
That's cheesy.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can add a message. Good.
Good, very good.
Okay, good.
Molto
Okay,
bene.
okay, please. Okay. You can also add a particular firm. Ciao. Like welcome. And at the end, you can preview your postcard, the photo in one side and the post in another side. You can choose, I don't know, a true physical address or an email address. And at the end, you can send the photo. And if you send the photo via email, it's just an email. If you send it through a physical address, you will receive the postcard with your customized photo.
Yeah, fantastic. So you print the card out and you ship it?
Yeah.
Very good.
No print a card. The card is directly shipped to the destination address. So
No,
you
your
only
company.
need to show the photo and customize it. Okay?
Postini. Sending postcards directly to addresses from your phone.
Grazie molto.
Okay, we got one more? Okay. Go on, we'll sneak one more in. What's the application? Okay. Okay, it's looking nice. It's called...
Got the microphone?
Oh, microphone. Who's got... You got the microphone? Huh.
It's just some recipes to cook. You have the main recipes. Now some recipes by the main thing inside. Some recipes sent from the users. They can send them by email, and I add it to the best ones. I add it to the application, and then some vegetarian ones for the vegetarians. And if you open it, you have many of them, and you have the lists of the things to buy, wine to match, some things you can do to do it better, and then the preparation. And in this section, which is only for the paid version of the app, you have also some pictures of how it could look like at the end.
Very nice. Cool.
That's it.
So I'd say that's good, yeah.
Thank you. What are you doing? Oh, you got some comments?
Yes.
That's right.
I'm sorry, it's only in Italian. I'm not translating it yet.
No. So I'd say good job. It's a very nice looking app. You can see again the action bar in evidence here, and then when you went in...
It says only this one you can open.
Okay.
The other one says buy it full.
With in-app purchase, or?
No.
Oh.
No, just another app on the market.
Okay. So yeah, I'd say that in-app purchase will be smoother. So just one button, and they can upgrade on the same app, so they don't have to download a
But
second
I've
app.
made it before I knew that it existed, so
Yeah. Well.
maybe I'm gonna upgrade it later.
Cool. Look forward to it. The other thing I'd say is it's good that you have. This is the view pager again.
No, because I didn't know it existed, so I used third-party open source library.
The Green Droid or?
What?
Green Droid, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's very good. One thing I'd say, if you have this horizontal swiping behavior, it's useful to have an indication on the screen to let users know.
Down there.
Ah, that's good.
Oh, sorry.
That's good. So, but you have to be moving it to find that. So I'd have to go like that to find it first.
Yes, I've made it to appear only 3 or 4 seconds and then disappear.
Okay, good. Yeah, so just be careful if you're doing this horizontal swiping. It's good to have some way of showing your user there is more content available. So like on the folder list one we had, it had the tabs at the top which showed clearly there was stuff to the left and to the right. So yeah, you need to have some mechanism like, I don't know if it's picking up the scroll bar at the bottom, showing there's more content. So yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, very good. So if we can get you all on stage around here, please. Everyone who had that app reviewed, we just by the means of applause decide which are the audience's favourite applications. So who's got the microphone this time? Thank you. Should always just go over there. Okay, so first of all, your application was?
Folder Organizer.
Folder Organizer lets you reorganize your Android home screen. Very many capabilities for organizing.
Util Translator.
Util Translator, you can share text from anywhere on the Android system and get it translated instantly through the share intent.
PushDoc.
PushDoc, share your documents instantly with your laptop or other things on the same network.
Postino.
Postino, create a postcard and send a physical postcard from wherever you are and make it pretty.
Alien Attack.
Alien Attack, the game where you're shooting the aliens at the sky.
Ricettario tascabile.
And the recipes at the end there. So, from who thinks that this one, Folder Organizer, deserves to get the phone today? With applause. Applause. We'll do it with applause. That's a lot for Folder Organizer. Okay. Sounds like you're sitting this round. How about Util Translator, being able to translate anything, anytime? Applause for Util Translator. I can see where this is going. Push to see bad memory again. Just really don't put me in these. It's PushDoc. Oh, okay. Postini. Postino. His friends down here. Alien Attack. And recipes, Italian.
So,
Italian, yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
between pushdoc and postini. So we do
Pushdoc
those
and
again.
postini.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Well, we've got, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, pushdoc and postini, we think, got the most applause out of all of those. Postino, sorry, I'm going to have some Italian lessons after this. Pushdoc or postino probably makes more sense. Sorry. Pushdoc or postino. So we'll start with maybe show of hands this time because the applause thing was a little bit vague. Show of hands for pushdoc. Who thinks pushdoc? Okay, that's a lot of hands. And postino. Oh, it looks like pushdoc's definitely got it. So congratulations to pushdoc.
Okay.
Okay.
Congratulations. Good job.
Thank you very much. And cheers. Thank you very much.
Good job, guys. Thanks. Thank you. Cheers.
Where's Ali?
Do questions or
Yeah, what time is it?
finish?
We've got
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, so just finally, I'll just pass that off. How are we doing? He's not coming. Okay. Okay then. As we mentioned before, the last thing we asked for when you registered was some questions. So we'll just have a final question and answer session from the audience in case you've got anything less that you'd like to have answered. If we can just switch back to the slides as well.
Done it.
We'll put this on. So just think, if there's any more questions you want, we've only got like 5 minutes left. Hey, hello. Questions and answers then. So from the application forms you filled in, you also entered some questions. So hopefully some of these questions up here are ones that we've now answered during the talks today. So we don't need to re-answer these now. LVL is only for paid apps because in-app billing has managed purchases. And free apps, we can't tell you whether someone's purchased it or not. How to promote my application, work with designers, make your application better, promote it through translating your application into the various different languages that you're targeting at. Of course, have a launch strategy, use Twitter, Facebook, social networking, Google+. And what makes the difference between a standard app and a super famous app? Again, very similar to the previous one. It's all about that application quality. We do pick up applications that are of that high quality that users are trending. You move through that curve from trending apps to new free apps to top free apps to featured apps. It's just a big curve, and that's how you get a super famous app. You make something that's good enough to follow this curve.
And when we look for quality, some of the things we look for is a great UI, which hopefully you now equipped to go and build. Using Android's unique features. We love apps which use Android's unique features. So like the share intent app we had that was translating, that's really cool. Stuff which uses kind of notifications and widgets and background updates where it's appropriate, we love. And stuff which has local content is great as well. So if you have an application which has got compelling local content, awesome UI, and lots of Android features, then that's the kind of app that we like to feature and we think will do really well.
Okay, so things that maybe we didn't answer. I'm interested in Google TV. What about Android and TV? Well, Android Google TV is rolling out across Europe over 2012, but the Google TV SDK, the preview SDK, is already available, and you can get that yourselves. You can just search for it, you'll find it. So you can test your application out and see how it's going to work on a device that doesn't have a touch screen or that has a different screen resolution and very, very different densities. So the emulator is there, the SDK is there, and
yeah, the other thing I'd add to that is start thinking about optimized layouts for TVs. And the interesting thing is that a TV and a tablet actually look kind of similar. So when you have a 10-inch device kind of here and a 40-inch device across the room, it's actually the same kind of layouts. You're actually looking for the same size elements in your UI. So start thinking about UIs optimized for that size target for when it's 40-inch across the room.
Are you providing payments towards Italian operators? So, interesting question. A lot of you are slightly concerned that it's only credit card payments in the Android market at the moment. And clearly, operator billing, we've seen it in every country we've launched operator billing in, or at least with every operator we've launched it, suddenly ticks a massive uptake in paid applications and in-app billing. It is a big thing for us, and we are rolling it out across Europe. We're working with all the operators. We're working in all the countries. So far, we've got as far as Vodafone in the UK and Germany, and then there's a lot in America and quite a lot in Japan. But we are working with the other operators. It's in their interest and it's in our interests to roll out carrier billing across Europe.
So yes, it's coming everywhere as soon as we can make deals with the operators. And if you've ever worked with an operator, it's quite slow.
It is coming.
Will Google open source the Android 4.0 after the release? Yes, we have committed to open sourcing it. So for those who don't know, Android 3.0 Honeycomb was not open sourced, unusually the first release that wasn't, but only because we didn't. It wasn't kind of ready for phones and things like that. We ran at 100 miles an hour to get it out there for tablets, but it wasn't optimized, and we didn't want any kind of OEMs anywhere picking up this release and like shoehorning it onto a phone or a device it wasn't intended for and having a suboptimal experience. So we took the unusual step of not open sourcing it, but we have committed that 4.0 will be open source. Andy Rubin said it himself, so yes.
Beyond Java and native C, will Google use other languages to develop Android applications? Or will Google support other languages, I guess? So it's true we're 100% committed to the Java, or the Java language syntax, and C/C++, the native SDK. But there are a couple of other things as well. We're looking at a C99 render script. It's used in those hero screens on YouTube, things like that. And as of the next release of Android, there's going to be far more stable features of that for you to be able to use as well. So that's the render script, 3D UI rendering and fast UI rendering.
So you can also use HTML. So we think the browser's coming on leaps and bounds, especially with HTML5 support. And there's definitely a place for blending your UIs with native components and some HTML5 components to help your code reuse and so on. So you can, use some HTML5 in your apps as well.
Cool.
And then there's the community efforts as well. So while I think Google will focus its support around the Java language and NDK for C and C++ development, there's also awesome community initiatives going on, like the scripting layer for Android and native Python compilation and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think Google will continue to focus on the core languages, but you have many options available to you.
Okay. I think this is the last one. From your perspective, are there any specific apps that could be the right one for the Italian market? Yes. I guess the right apps for the Italian market are going to be ones that you know about. They're going to be local applications that Italians want. They're not going to be the ones that the Americans are piping out the whole time. If you're writing applications that are relevant to your local market, relevant to your local cinema goers' needs or shopping needs, whatever it could be, then clearly they should be in Italian in the Android market. With the latest Android market rollout, we're trying to localize the lists that we're including a lot more, trying to take account of the fact that these applications were published in the local country and are being downloaded by people in the local country. It helps everyone globally. So it's one of the signals we're using more during the ranking of Android now is local. So if you do have an application idea that's relevant locally, put it in, make sure it's in Italian, and you've got descriptions in Italian, and then it's the right one for the Italian market.
And write the apps that you would use as well. I mean, if you kind of written an app and you have trouble describing what it does or why someone else should want to use it, then it's probably not the right app to be writing. If there's an app which you can say, I use this every day, it makes my life better, then you're probably onto a good idea. So those are the apps you should be writing.
Wow. Okay, I thought that was the last question, but it looks like there's an essay left at the end. What about costs? If we have to, I'll let you read it in Italian first. I'll give you 2 minutes. What about costs if we have to develop for several OSs like Android, iOS, RIM, Windows Phone, browsers, and devices like smartphone and tablets? Is there a future standard will be unified? No. Or the market will always be divided and fragmented, probably. So yeah, clearly there's nothing coming in the near future which is going to unify all of these. But there are solutions out there to make life easier. You may have heard of PhoneGap and Titanium. These solutions that you can either point them at a Git repository or you can write some HTML yourselves and wrap it inside these packages, and it runs across all the different devices. My only warning with solutions like this is that don't just do one UI. Do a UI which is specific to BlackBerry, a UI for Android, a UI for iPhone. Make sure you make the tweaks that you would have made for native apps anyway, even if you're writing it in HTML. You can still keep all the backend the same, all the JavaScript and all that, but the worst thing we find is when someone uses PhoneGap or Titanium and they just launch one app across all the platforms, it never looks like it fits on any one of the platforms. So just do UI tweaks and have different layouts for each platform, and then you can do it in HTML.
Yeah, I think HTML5 is coming on really strongly as well, so you can write your one app that's going to run across everything. But by its power is also standards, and standards by necessity take a while to come out. So if you want anything new and blazing edge, things like hardware acceleration and access to the GPS and compass and stuff like that, these are necessarily going to be native features before they are cross-platform standardized features. So it depends on your app you're writing. If you're writing something which takes advantage of the hardware and things like that, you probably, it's always going to be a native app. If you're going to do something less challenging, which is not using a lot of hardware features or performance features, then you might get away with using other technologies, but make sure you do customize the UI to fit in with the scenario you're running on.
Okay, well that is the last question. The clicker clicks no more. So unless anyone's got any questions from the audience? Nope. 3, 2, 1. No? We're done. Thank you all very much for coming today. Thank you. I hope...
Thank you, guys.
That's okay.
That was an excellent presentation.
I hope there's been something interesting for each of you.
Ringrazio questi ragazzi che hanno fatto un ottimo lavoro. Was
Prego.
incredible, was excellent.
We'll be up here anyway if anyone wants to ask any questions. We'll stay around.
Avremo l'aperitivo tra poco e la visita al museo, se volete. Grazie al pubblico che siete venuti così numerosi, avete partecipato. Auguri a quello che ha vinto il telefonino. Grazie a tutti.